Stepmom wants me to sign away my inheritance. My dad passed away less than 3 weeks ago. It still feels strange to say that out loud. Some days, it does not feel real at all. I keep expecting him to walk through the front door, his heavy boots echoing down the hallway like they always did, calling out for coffee or asking if the dog had been fed. But that will not happen anymore. Dad was a strong man, quiet but full of presence. He was not the type to complain or make a big show of things. He worked hard all his life and gave us the kind of upbringing where we never had to worry about food on the table or clothes on our backs. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to mow the lawn without missing spots, and how to change the oil in my car. He taught me even bigger things, too, like standing up for myself and doing what is right, even when it is hard. He had been married to my stepmom for about 10 years. She came into our lives after we were all grown. My siblings and there are 5 of us all together. We were polite to her and tried to get along. Even though none of us were especially close to her, Dad seemed happy, and that was enough for us. She was quiet, like him, but in a different way. Dad's quiet came from peace. Hers felt like it came from watching and waiting. When Dad passed, it hit us all hard. He had been dealing with some health issues, but no one expected it to happen so soon. We had barely started to process our grief when the legal matters started to creep in. We found out that Dad did not have a will. That surprised me. He was always so organized, always had a plan. But sometimes even the best of us leave things unfinished. It meant everything had to go through probate. I began reading up on how that worked. It turns out, in his state, if someone dies without a will, the spouse gets half of everything, and the remaining half is split among the children. Dad owned 2 homes. One was completely paid off, and the other had just a small mortgage left. There were other things to his boat, a couple of motorcycles, his truck, and some tools. I was not sure about the bank accounts or any investments. He had never really talked much about money, and I never asked. That was just how he was. I figured things would take time. Probate is not a quick process, and I assumed we would all work through it slowly, with patience and care. Then the phone rang. It was my stepmom. She had called all 5 of us adult children and wanted to speak to us at once. Her voice was calm, but there was something firm beneath the calm. Like the edge of a knife you can barely see, she said her lawyer had prepared some papers, and she needed us all to sign them. "What are the papers for?" one of my sisters asked. "Give me your share of the inheritance," she replied. Just like that. No hesitation. There was a pause. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. The room felt suddenly colder. "I am sorry," I said gently, "but I do not feel comfortable signing anything until I speak to a lawyer." "No offense," she said quickly, "but it would really help me if you all just signed. It is what your father would have wanted." That sentence hit me hard. What my father would have wanted? Maybe, maybe not. But he never said anything like that to me. Now he was gone. There was no way to ask him. It felt wrong to sign away something without even understanding what it meant. It felt like I was being rushed, pushed. Still, I worried. Was I overreacting? Was I being greedy? My father's passing was still so fresh, and now I was caught in a storm of paperwork and decisions. All I wanted was to grieve in peace. I reached out to some friends and asked for advice. Most of them said the same thing. Do not sign anything without talking to a lawyer. Even if it feels uncomfortable, it is okay to protect your rights. So that is where I am now, trying to find someone who can help me understand the legal part. Trying to stay calm while everything around me feels a little off. I am not angry. Not really. I just want to do the right thing. And more than anything, I wish Dad had left a will. I wish he had written down what he wanted, so none of us would be left guessing. For now, all I can do is move one step at a time. Honor his memory and make choices I can live with. After that phone call with my stepmom, I felt unsettled. Not just because of what she had asked, but because of how quickly it all happened. My father had been gone for less than 3 weeks. We had not even had time to hold a proper memorial service yet. And already, there were documents, lawyers, and pressure to sign things I barely understood. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the few photos I had of Dad. One of my favorites was from a fishing trip we took when I was 12. Dad had on his old green cap, the one with the frayed edge, and he was holding a fish with the biggest grin I had ever seen. I remembered how proud he was that day, not just because of the fish, but because I had baited the hook myself and waited patiently. Patience and planning, he had said. Those two things will carry you far. Now here I was, trying to follow his advice, but the pressure from my stepmom was making it hard. The next morning, I called one of my older brothers. He had also been on that group call and was just as surprised by our stepmom's request. We had not talked much since Dad passed, but the moment he picked up, I could hear the same uneasiness in his voice. She called me again after the group call. He said, "She really needs us to sign those papers fast, or it could cause problems with the estate." I told her I was not comfortable with that. "Me too," I said. "It just feels rushed." We talked for a while about our memories of Dad, the way he used to fix things around the house, and how he loved watching old westerns. My brother mentioned that Dad had always said he wanted things to be fair after he was gone. He never liked secrets or drama. So why did this feel so secretive? Later that day, I got a copy of the papers from my stepmom's lawyer. They were long, full of legal words I did not understand. But one thing was clear. They asked me to sign away any rights I had to Dad's estate, not just the house, everything. I was stunned. I reached out to a lawyer who was kind and patient, and he explained things in simple words. He confirmed what I already suspected. If I signed those papers, I would be giving up my legal share of the inheritance forever. "Do you think I am overreacting?" I asked him. "No," he said. "You are simply protecting yourself. This is a big decision. Take your time." That was the first moment I felt a little bit of peace. But that peace did not last long. 2 days later, my stepmom called again. This time she sounded frustrated. "I do not understand why you are making this harder than it needs to be," she said. "Your father would not want us all fighting." "I am not trying to fight," I said gently. "But I need time. I need to understand everything before I sign anything." There was silence on the other end. Then she said something that made my heart sink. "If you all just sign now, I can make sure you still get something. But if this drags on through probate, who knows what will be left?" I did not say anything, stared out the window at the big oak tree in the yard. Dad had planted that tree when we were little. It had grown tall and strong, just like he had. I hung up the phone after a short goodbye. I started to feel something deep in my chest, not anger, but sadness. This should have been a time for remembering my father, for telling stories, sharing hugs, and holding each other close. Instead, it felt like a tug of war over things and money. That was not the kind of legacy my father would have wanted. I reached out to my other siblings. We decided to have a small family gathering that weekend, just the 5 of us. No legal talk, no papers, just a chance to be together, to grieve, and to remember. Dad, when we met at my sister's house, it felt warm and comforting. We cooked one of Dad's favorite meals, meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green beans. We played some of his old country records and looked through photo albums. We even laughed a little, remembering some of Dad's old jokes and stories. It felt good to be together again. We talked, too, about the situation with our stepmom. Each of us felt the same, that it was too soon, that we needed more time, and that signing anything without understanding it fully would be wrong. We agreed not to sign anything until the probate process was complete, and we had the full picture. That decision gave me a bit of peace, knowing we were united, not just as Dad's children, but as a family. As I left that night, I looked up at the sky. It was clear and full of stars. I thought of Dad and how he used to say that no matter how dark things got, the stars were always there if you looked up. Maybe things would be hard for a while. Maybe there would be more calls and more pressure. But I would take Dad's advice, be patient, and have a plan. That was the best way I could honor him. After our quiet family gathering, something inside me felt stronger. Not because we had solved anything, but because we had come together. In those few hours of stories, memories, and shared meals, I remembered who we were as siblings, not perfect, not always in touch, but always connected by the same man who raised us with steady hands and a steady heart. The next week brought a mix of emotions. The probate court had finally opened the case, and a notice was sent to each of us about our rights. It listed all the known assets, the 2 houses, the vehicles, the boat, and some personal belongings. There was still no full inventory of the bank accounts, and we were told it could take months to figure everything out. That made sense. Lawyers said that was normal. But even so, the silence from my stepmom was broken by more calls. She had started calling us one by one instead of in a group. This time her voice was soft or almost pleading. "I cannot afford to keep both houses if this drags on," she said to my brother. "I will lose everything if you all do not help me." Then to one of my sisters, she said, "Your dad always said he wanted to make sure I was taken care of. Why would you go against that?" The thing was, we did not want to hurt her.
Ow.
None of us hated her, but we also knew something was not right. We were being asked to give up what the law had set. Aside for us, not just money, but the pieces of our dad's life that he had worked hard for. It was not about being greedy. It was about fairness, about care, about memory. A week later, my sister called me sounding anxious. She came by the house today, she whispered, unannounced, just knocked, and stood there holding the papers. "Again, what did you do?" I asked, my heart tightening. I told her no, again, but it is getting harder. Felt it too, the pressure. It was slow and constant, like water wearing down stone. Every call, every visit, made us doubt ourselves just a little more. Were we being selfish? Was this causing more pain than necessary? I decided to go to the cemetery that afternoon. Dad's grave was still fresh, the ground slightly sunk in wear. The soil had not fully settled. I knelt down and brushed away a few leaves. I spoke softly, even though I knew he could not hear. "I am trying to do what is right," I said. "But I wish you had left a will. I wish we did not have to guess." Wind rustled through the trees nearby. Birds chirped quietly overhead. It felt peaceful, and for a while, I just sat there. No phone. No decisions. Just silence. Later that evening, I received a message from my stepmom's lawyer. It was a formal letter saying that if we continued to delay signing, she might consider contesting the division of assets. My lawyer reviewed it and said, "This is more pressure. Nothing has changed. She is trying to wear you all down. We were tired, yes, but not broken. We had decided as siblings to stick together. That mattered more than anything now. If one of us gave in, it would be harder for the rest." The next weekend, we met again, this time at my brother's house. We sat around the fire, pit outside, watching the flames dance as night settled in. One of my brothers brought out a box Dad had left in his garage. It had old fishing lures, a faded tackle box, and a folded letter. "Did you read this?" he asked, holding the letter gently. "No," I said. "What is it?" "It is from Dad. Not a will, but a letter. He wrote it last year, after a small health scare. Said he never wanted us to fight over anything when he was gone." He read it out loud. The letter was short but full of Dad's voice, calm, steady, clear. He said he trusted us to look after each other, to be fair, and to hold on to love more than anything else. My eyes welled up, not because of the money or the property, but because in that moment I heard Dad again. He trusted us, and so we had to be worthy of that trust. We made a new plan. We would continue to wait through the probate process. No signing, no rushing. If the court awarded our stepmom her legal share, we would honor that. If she needed help after that, we would talk about it as a family. But we would not be tricked or guilted into giving up what was left for us. This was not just about things. It was about standing up for Dad's memory in a way that reflected who he was, a man who believed in fairness, in honesty, and in family. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Weeks turned into months, and the probate process moved slowly, as expected. Court documents, asset listings, and attorney phone calls filled the spaces where grief should have had room to breathe. Even so, life did not stop. We each returned to our routines as best we could: work, home, family, carrying the quiet sadness that comes after losing a parent. But we also carried something else. As siblings, we stayed in touch more often than we had in years. There were updates, check-ins, and shared frustrations. We no longer felt alone in this strange storm of legal matters and family pressure. My stepmom, on the other hand, became more distant. After our quiet refusal to sign the inheritance away, she stopped calling. We only heard from her through lawyers. Her tone, once urgent and pleading, had turned cold in the official letters. She was still asking for what we had already said we would not give: our legal right. Our father's final gifts to us. At first it was hard not to feel guilty. We were raised to be kind, to share, to put others first. But kindness should not mean surrender. Sharing should not mean being pushed. And putting others first should not mean forgetting yourself. One afternoon, my youngest sister called with tears in her voice. "I saw her today at the grocery store," she said. She looked right at me and then just walked away. My heart ached for her. None of this was how it was supposed to be. But what choice did we have? To pretend we were not hurt? To hand over our father's life work just to avoid awkward silences? "I know it is hard," I told her. "But we are doing the right thing, not just for us, but for Dad." Eventually, the court finalized the list of assets. The estate was larger than we had first believed. In addition to the 2 homes and vehicles, there were 2 savings accounts and some retirement funds. As the law stated, my stepmom would receive her 50%. The other half would be split among the 5 of us children, a fair and legal outcome. My lawyer explained that, now that probate was nearly complete, we would soon receive our shares. There would be papers to sign, but they would come from the court, not from someone trying to take more than their share. It was official. It was real. It was also sad that it had taken so long. Sad that relationships had changed. Sad that our stepmom, who could have been family to us, had chosen another path. But even in the sadness, I felt peace. We had not given in to pressure. We had followed the process. We had acted with care. When the final court papers arrived, I sat down at the same kitchen table where I had read those confusing documents months ago. This time, there was no confusion, no panic, just understanding. As I signed my name, I looked out the window again at the tall oak tree. Its branches stretched wide, like arms always ready to catch the wind. I thought of Dad and how he used to sit under that tree during the summer, reading a book or watching the dog chase squirrels. This was not just paperwork. This was the closing of a chapter of quiet strength, of standing firm, and of remembering what mattered. With my portion of the inheritance, I decided to do something meaningful. I fixed up the old fishing boat Dad had loved, the one he used to take us out on during long weekends. It had been sitting in storage for years, needing repairs. I took it to a shop and had it restored, piece by piece. New seats, a fresh coat of paint, and even a framed photo of Dad tucked under the dashboard. Then, on a calm Saturday morning, I took the boat out to the lake. I invited my siblings, though they came with snacks, laughter, and stories. The door. We each had our turn behind the wheel. Just like when we were kids, the wind was gentle. The water sparkled in the sun. It was not about the money. It never was about remembering. About holding on to the good and letting go of the rest. Later that day, we spread some of Dad's ashes at the edge of the lake, the spot he always called his quiet place. The sun dipped low, and the sky turned golden. "I hope we made you proud," my brother whispered. I believe we did, not by fighting, not by winning, but by choosing patience, wisdom, and unity when the easy road would have been to give up or give in. We did not just hold on to our inheritance, we held on to each other. And that, more than anything else, would have made Dad proud. Telling a woman to keep her comments to herself in an elevator. It had been a long day at work, not a bad day. Just one of those days where everything moved a little slower, when your legs felt just a little heavier by the time the clock hit 5. I was ready to go home, sit down with a warm drink, and enjoy a quiet evening. As I waited in the lobby of my office building, the elevator dinged and the doors slid open. There was no one directly in front of me, so I stepped in. I was not in a hurry. I was not rushing. I had simply been standing there, lost in my thoughts. That is when I heard a voice behind me. A woman, sharp and loud, said, "Wow, how rude. Could have let us on first." I turned around, surprised. Just a few steps behind me stood a woman and an elderly couple. I had not seen or heard them as I walked toward the elevator. They had probably been coming from the side or slightly behind me, just out of view. Caught off guard, I quickly said, "Oh, I am sorry. I did not see you there. There is plenty of room for everyone." It was a small space, but it was not crowded. There was no pushing, no rushing. I honestly did not understand why she was upset. But instead of accepting the apology and moving on, she kept talking. "People these days have no manners," she said loudly, shaking her head. "No respect for others. Just barging in like they own the place." The elderly couple stood silently beside her. They looked tired, perhaps a bit uncomfortable. I wanted to believe they understood that this was all a misunderstanding, that I had not meant to be rude, but I also felt their quiet glances, and I felt a knot begin to form in my stomach. As the elevator started moving, her voice did not stop. It was not yelling, just constant a stream of disapproval. Words like rude, disrespectful, and selfish floated around the small space. I stared ahead, hoping she would run out of things to say, but she did not. I felt the warmth rise in my face. My hands, resting at my sides, were beginning to clench. I did not want to make a scene. I did not want to speak harshly. But I also did not want to just stand there and be talked about like I was not even a person. Finally, I turned slightly and said, not shouting, but louder than before, "Could you just keep your comments to yourself?" The elevator fell into silence, her mouth shut mid-sentence. The couple beside her looked at me, then whispered something I could not hear. They gave me a look of quiet, disappointed look, and I wondered what they were thinking. I stood still. I did not say anything else. The elevator continued upward, smooth and slow. But inside, my mind was racing. Had I done something wrong? Had I made things worse by speaking up? I had only wanted a peaceful ride home. The rest of the elevator ride was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that feels full, like a balloon about to burst. I stood there, facing forward, unsure where to rest my eyes. The woman behind me did not say another word. Neither did the elderly couple. But their quiet now felt heavier than her words had. I kept thinking about what had just happened. Maybe I should not have said anything. Maybe I should have just nodded and stayed quiet, even as her words poked and pushed. But how much is too much? At what point is it fair to ask someone to stop? I had not raised my voice like a yell, but I had spoken firmly, maybe too firmly. My words echoed in my mind. Could you just keep your comments to yourself? Had it sounded angry? Maybe it had. Maybe that is why they looked at me like that. Maybe they were just surprised someone had spoken up. The elevator stopped at the next floor. The doors opened with a soft ding, and the woman stepped out first. She did not say anything. She did not even glance my way. The elderly couple followed behind her. The man gave a small nod in my direction. Not a smile, just a nod. I could not tell what it meant. As the doors closed again, I was alone. I leaned back slightly against the wall and let out a slow breath. It felt strange how something so small, something that had lasted maybe 3 or 4 minutes at most, could sit so heavy in your heart. I had not tried to hurt anyone. I had not meant to skip ahead or be rude. I had only stepped into an empty elevator. But now, I found myself second-guessing every move I made. When I finally reached the ground floor, I walked out into the warm evening air. The sky was starting to turn soft with the colors of the setting sun, pink, gold, and a bit of quiet blue. The breeze felt cool against my face, and I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the weight of the moment. On the way to the parking lot, I passed a small garden tucked along the side of the building. It had a bench and a few trees, and I decided to sit for a while before heading home. There was a peaceful sound of leaves rustling and birds settling in for the night. It was calm in a way the elevator had not been. I closed my eyes for a moment and tried to just listen. Then a thought came to me. What if she was just having a hard day too? Maybe she had gotten bad news. Maybe she was worried about something. Maybe she felt like she was trying to protect the elderly couple behind her. Even if it came out more harsh than it needed to, I did not know her story, just like she did not know mine. I remembered something my dad once told me years ago. Sometimes people do not mean to throw stones. They are just trying to keep their own walls from falling. That thought did not erase what happened. Did not make her words okay, but it did soften the way I felt about it. Not everything needed to be a fight. Not every sharp word needed to leave a scar. I sat there a little longer, listening to the wind move through the leaves. The tension in my shoulders started to ease. By the time I stood up to go home, I had made a small decision in my heart. I would not carry this moment with me like a burden. I had apologized when I thought I might have been wrong. I'd spoken up when the words had gone too far, and I had done it calmly, with respect. That was enough. I may not have handled everything perfectly, but I had tried. And sometimes, trying with a kind heart is the best any of us can do. The next morning came like any other, sunlight gently filling the room. The hum of early traffic outside, and the scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen. But inside my mind, that elevator moment still lingered. It was not as sharp as the day before, but it was still there, sitting in the background like a faint echo. As I stirred a spoon of honey into my tea, I thought again about how quickly things can turn tense between strangers. One small misunderstanding, one missed glance, and suddenly you are being told you have no manners. And yet, the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of that moment was not about who was right or wrong. It was about how we all choose to treat each other when things feel uncomfortable or uncertain. At work, the day was quiet. I kept to myself for the most part. I smiled at the receptionist, held the door open for someone with their hands full, and made small talk with a colleague about the weather. Little things, simple things, but they made me feel better. Around lunch, I took a short walk outside. The sun was warm, and a light breeze moved through the trees. As I walked, I saw an older man walking with a cane, moving slowly but steadily. A young woman coming from the other direction stepped aside without a word, giving him room and offering a small smile. He nodded back with a kind look. That moment, so quiet, so quick, reminded me of something important. Kindness does not have to be loud. It does not even need words. It can be a look, a gesture, or simply letting someone pass without needing to say a thing. I thought again about the elevator. Maybe the woman had felt like I ignored her or disrespected her by stepping on first. Maybe she thought I saw them and chose to act like they were not there. She had no way of knowing I genuinely had not seen them. Maybe in her mind, that moment confirmed something she had already felt many times, like people were too self-centered. These days, like the world was too fast and too impolite. Maybe she was tired of feeling pushed aside. It did not excuse the things she said, but it helped me understand a little more. Later that evening, as I sat down to read before bed, I picked up an old book I had not opened in a while. Inside, tucked between the pages, was a note I had written to myself a few years back. It said, "Speak gently, even when others do not. The world needs more quiet strength." That note felt like it had waited all this time for me to read it. Again, I realized then that what mattered most about the elevator moment was not how the woman acted, but how I chose to respond. I could not control her words, but I had been in control of mine. I had not shouted. I had not said anything unkind. I had spoken up not to hurt, but to ask for quiet. That mattered. The truth is, all of us are trying to move through the world the best we can. We all have moments where we get frustrated or feel ignored. We all have days where we wish someone would just look at us and see that we are doing our best. Sometimes we fail at that. Sometimes we forget that the person in front of us may be having a hard day too. But if we can find even a little bit of gentleness, even when we feel pushed, we can bring some calm back into a moment that feels too loud. I turned off the lamp beside my bed and laid back on the pillow. The window was open just a crack, letting in the soft night air. Tomorrow, I knew I would ride that elevator again. Maybe with strangers, maybe even with her. And if I did, I would try again to be kind. Not because it was always easy, but because it was always right. The next few days passed without anything unusual. I went to work, took my breaks, and shared small, ordinary moments with people around me. The elevator stayed just an elevator, a quiet place to go from one floor to the next, with no raised voices or tense stares. Still, I thought about what had happened that day more than I expected I would, not in a heavy way anymore, not with worry or guilt, just quietly, like when a breeze comes through a window and gently moves the curtains. One morning, I walked into the lobby as usual and pressed the elevator button. I had just taken a sip of coffee from the small paper cup in my hand when the doors opened, and there she was, the same woman. The one from before. She was standing toward the back, her hands folded neatly in front of her, looking down at the floor. Our eyes met for just a moment, and I felt my breath catch. Not out of fear, just surprise. I stepped in slowly and nodded politely. I did not say anything else. I did not need to. There were others in the elevator too, chatting softly, checking their phones. The woman glanced up once more and gave a tiny, almost shy nod in return. It was not much, but it was something. The elevator rose one floor, then another. No one said anything unpleasant. No one gave disapproving looks. It was just a normal ride, the way it should have been from the beginning. When the doors opened, She stepped out first this time. She paused for half a second, then quietly said, "Have a good day." I blinked, surprised again, but pleasantly. "This time, you too," I said warmly, and just like that, she was gone. It was a small moment. So small, in fact, that it might have meant nothing. But to me, it meant a lot. Not because everything had been fixed, and not because we suddenly understood each other, but because kindness had found its way back in, even just a little. Sometimes, that is all it takes. I walked through the hallway with a lighter step that morning. It reminded me of something I had once read. We do not get to choose every moment we face, but we do get to choose how we carry them. I had carried that elevator moment with doubt and worry at first. Then I had carried it with reflection and understanding. Now, finally, I could put it down. Not forget it, but place it gently in the past, like closing a book you have learned. From that night, as I got ready for bed, I thought about how many people go through moments like that every single day. Moments that are not loud or life-changing but still stay with you. A frown from a stranger, a harsh word at the store, misunderstanding that makes you wonder if you are the problem. But what makes the difference is not how perfect we are, is how we respond. With calm, with care, and when possible, with grace. So, if you ever find yourself in a moment like that, stuck between silence and someone else's frustration, just remember, your voice matters. Kindness matters. And you are allowed to stand up for yourself without being unkind to anyone else. As I turned off the light and laid my head on the pillow, I felt at peace. The elevator moment had come and gone. I had learned from it. And now I could let it go. Tomorrow would be another day. Another chance to be thoughtful, to be patient, and maybe to share a little more quiet strength with the world. The truth is, all of us are trying to move through the world the best we can. We all have moments where we get frustrated or feel ignored. We all have days where we wish someone would just look at us and see that we are doing our best. Sometimes we fail at that. Sometimes we forget that the person in front of us may be having a hard day too. But if we can find even a little bit of gentleness, even when we feel pushed, we can bring some calm back into a moment that feels too loud. I turned off the lamp beside my bed and laid back on the pillow. The window was open just a crack, letting in the soft night air. Tomorrow, I knew I would ride that elevator again. Maybe with strangers, maybe even with her. And if I did, I would try again to be kind. Not because it was always easy, but because it was always right. The next few days passed without anything unusual. I went to work, took my breaks, and shared small, ordinary moments with people around me. The elevator stayed just an elevator, a quiet place to go from one floor to the next, with no raised voices or tense stares. Still, I thought about what had happened that day more than I expected I would, not in a heavy way anymore, not with worry or guilt, just quietly, like when a breeze comes through a window and gently moves the curtains. One morning, I walked into the lobby as usual and pressed the elevator button. I had just taken a sip of coffee from the small paper cup in my hand when the doors opened, and there she was, the same woman. The one from before. She was standing toward the back, her hands folded neatly in front of her, looking down at the floor. Our eyes met for just a moment, and I felt my breath catch. Not out of fear, just surprise. I stepped in slowly and nodded politely. I did not say anything else. I did not need to. There were others in the elevator too, chatting softly, checking their phones. The woman glanced up once more and gave a tiny, almost shy nod in return. It was not much, but it was something. The elevator rose one floor, Then, another. No one said anything unpleasant. No one gave disapproving looks. It was just a normal ride, the way it should have been from the beginning. When the doors opened, she stepped out first this time. She paused for half a second, then quietly said, "Have a good day." I blinked, surprised again, but pleasantly. "This time, you too," I said warmly, and just like that, she was gone. It was a small moment. So small, in fact, that it might have meant nothing. But to me, it meant a lot. Not because everything had been fixed, and not because we suddenly understood each other, but because kindness had found its way back in, even just a little. Sometimes, that is all it takes. I walked through the hallway with a lighter step that morning. It reminded me of something I had once read. We do not get to choose every moment we face, but we do get to choose how we carry them. I had carried that elevator moment with doubt and worry at first. Then I had carried it with reflection and understanding. Now, finally, I could put it down. Not forget it, but place it gently in the past, like closing a book you have learned. From that night, as I got ready for bed, I thought about how many people go through moments like that every single day. Moments that are not loud or life-changing but still stay with you. A frown from a stranger, a harsh word at the store, misunderstanding that makes you wonder if you are the problem. But what makes the difference is not how perfect we are, is how we respond. With calm, with care, and when possible, with grace. So, if you ever find yourself in a moment like that, stuck between silence and someone else's frustration, just remember, your voice matters. Kindness matters. And you are allowed to stand up for yourself without being unkind to anyone else. As I turned off the light and laid my head on the pillow, I felt at peace. The elevator moment had come and gone. I had learned from it. And now I could let it go. Tomorrow would be another day. Another chance to be thoughtful, to be patient, and maybe to share a little more quiet strength with the world. Choosing to go to my grandfather's funeral over my unborn daughter's 20-week ultrasound. My wife and I were expecting our first child, a baby girl. The kind of joy that comes with news like that is hard to put into words. From the moment we found out, my heart started dreaming. I talked to her through my wife's belly every night, whispering stories and silly jokes. I felt every tiny kick with wonder, imagining what she might be like. Would she have her mom's smile? My dad's laugh? Would she like music, the outdoors, or bedtime stories like the ones I grew up with? We had our 20-week ultrasound appointment, scheduled for a Wednesday morning, though it would actually be closer to 22 weeks. It felt like a big milestone, seeing our daughter, hearing her heartbeat, maybe even finding out more about her growing personality. We were both counting down the days with excited hearts. But then life reminded us that joy and sadness often walk side by side. My grandfather, quiet and loving man, who had shaped so much of who I am, had started declining. His health had been fragile for a while, but the last week and a half felt different. It was like something in the air had changed, heavy with the kind of silence that comes before goodbye. I spoke with my father, who sounded tired in a way that only happens when someone is bracing to lose their own dad. He told me the funeral would likely be held within a week of Grandpa's passing. It made us pause. My wife and I talked about what we would do if the funeral fell on the same day as the ultrasound. We both hoped it would not come to that, but life had other plans. Late one night, the phone rang. My grandfather had passed, quietly, peacefully. In his sleep, I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my phone in one hand and covering my face with the other. It was not unexpected, but still, my heart cracked. He had been there for every part of my life, every birthday, every summer trip, every moment when I needed a soft voice and a strong hand. And now he was gone. The funeral was scheduled for Wednesday at 10 a.m., exactly when the ultrasound was scheduled. I told my wife gently. We were lying on the couch, the dogs curled up beside us. She looked at me, not saying anything at first, just holding my gaze. "So what do we do?" she asked. "I think I need to go," I said. "They asked me to be a pallbearer." There was a long pause. "I can stay home with the dogs," she said. "I know you were close with him. We left it there." Quiet, thoughtful. Both of us needing time. The next morning the house felt different. It was quiet in a thoughtful way. Not the peaceful quiet of sleep or comfort, but the stillness that comes when emotions are too big for words. I made coffee and stood by the window, looking out at the sky. It was gray, and the clouds hung low, almost like they were feeling the same sadness I was. My wife sat at the kitchen table with her hands around her cup. Her gaze focused on nothing in particular. I could tell she had not slept well either. Neither of us spoke right away. Eventually, I walked over and sat down across from her. "I know this is hard," I said softly. She looked up at me. "It is." I took a deep breath. "I want to be there for the ultrasound. I really do. I have been dreaming about seeing our little girl on the screen, hearing her heartbeat again. But this is my grandfather's funeral. He was the one who showed me how to ride a bike, helped me build my first treehouse, and always had the right words when I needed them." "I understand," she said, but her voice was quiet. I reached out and gently took her hand. "What if we FaceTime during the ultrasound? I can step out for just those few minutes wherever I am. I will find a way to see her, even if it is just through the screen." She hesitated. "It is not the same. This is a once-in-a-lifetime moment." I nodded slowly. "I know. But so is saying goodbye." That was the hard part. I could not be in both places, no matter how much I wished I could. My heart felt torn right down the middle between the daughter I was waiting to meet and the grandfather I was preparing to say goodbye to. My wife stood up, walked over, and sat beside me. "I am not trying to be unfair," she said gently. I have been feeling a little overwhelmed. The pregnancy is getting real, and this appointment makes it feel even more so. I wanted you there beside me, holding my hand." I nodded again, feeling my eyes sting. And I wanted to be there for that too. We sat in silence for a while. The dogs stirred at our feet but stayed close, sensing something was different. I wrapped my arm around her shoulder and she leaned into me. "I do not want this to be something we fight about," she said. "I know you love this baby. I know you care. And I know you loved your grandfather. I just want to do right by everyone," I whispered, "even when it feels impossible." That night, we packed a small bag for me to take on the drive. The funeral would be held in my father's hometown, over 4 hours north. My wife helped fold the clothes and lay them neatly into the suitcase. She even tucked in a framed picture of Grandpa and me from when I was little. I had forgotten I still had it. "You should bring this," she said. "Maybe it will help." It did. The next morning, I left before the sun rose. She stood at the front door in her robe, holding one of the dogs in her arms. She looked tired, but she smiled for me. "Drive safe," she said, kissing my cheek. "I will call as soon as I get there. And if the signal is good, I will FaceTime you when I am at the ultrasound." "Thank you," I said quietly. "That means more than you know." As I pulled out of the driveway, the sky was just beginning to lighten. I watched the house disappear in my rearview mirror, knowing my heart was still partly in it. Some goodbyes happen all at once. Others happen slowly, like a page turning. And in that moment, I felt both. The drive up north was long and quiet. Trees blurred past the window, and the roads wound gently through fields and small towns that looked almost like still life paintings. Every so often, I would see an old barn or a porch swing and think of Grandpa. He loved road trips when I was little. He used to take me out for drives just like this, no destination, just stories and songs. He would point out birds or tell me the names of wildflowers growing by the road. He always made the world feel gentle and big at the same time. Now, I was making the same trip, but this time, I was the one with the silence, holding my own thoughts instead of listening to his voice. I got to my father's house just after lunch. The house was filled with quiet conversation and the kind of comforting smells that come with family gatherings, warm food, familiar cologne, the scent of fresh linens on guest beds. My dad hugged me tight, his face both strong and weary. "Thanks for coming, son," he said. "Of course," I replied, my voice catching slightly. "I would not be anywhere else." We sat for a while, talking about Grandpa. Dad told me how, even in his final days, Grandpa had asked about everyone, how the baby was doing, how my wife was feeling. That made me smile. Also made the ache in my chest feel a little sharper. Later that night, I called my wife. She was in bed with the dogs beside her. Her eyes looked tired, but her voice was soft and kind. "We miss you," she said. "I miss you both too." We talked for a while about how the day had gone, about small things like what the dogs did that morning, or what she had for dinner. We avoided talking about the appointment. We both knew it was coming soon. The morning of the funeral, I wore the suit Grandpa had helped me pick out years ago for a cousin's wedding. It still fit, and I took comfort in that. My hands felt shaky as I straightened the tie, and I tucked the photo my wife gave me into my inside pocket at the church. The air was filled with the quiet murmur of old friends and family. The pews creaked softly as people settled in. A slideshow played pictures of Grandpa smiling on fishing trips, holding babies, wearing his favorite red flannel shirt. Then, just before the service began, I stepped outside. I checked my phone. 1 bar of signal, just enough. I called my wife. She answered right away. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. I needed to hear your voice. It is almost time." "Same here," she said. "I am in the waiting room." "They are calling me in soon." For a few moments, we just listened to each other breathe. "I wish I could be 2 places at once," I said. "I know," she replied. "Me too. I will try to FaceTime when I step out again. Even if I do not see you," she said. "Just knowing you are thinking of us means everything." And I was. Every minute. At the funeral, I stood beside my cousins as a pallbearer. I held the side of the casket with careful hands, thinking about how many strong hands had once held mine. My grandfather had carried me through so much, and now, in some quiet way, I was helping carry him. After the service, I stepped outside again. I sat under a big oak tree and opened my phone. This time the signal was strong. The screen lit up with my wife's face, and then there she was. Our baby girl, tiny, perfect, and moving gently inside the womb. Her heart flickered like a little light, steady and strong. The tech moved the wand slowly, pointing out little arms, little legs. "She's beautiful," I whispered. Blinking away tears, my wife turned the camera back to her face. She was smiling. "You are here," she said softly. "I never left," I replied. And in that moment, I knew, even though I could not be in the same room, I had made it to both places, because love, when it is real, finds a way. After the ultrasound, my wife sent me the printed Imagistany black and white snapshots that felt bigger than anything I had ever seen. In one photo, our daughter had her hand near her face. In another, her little feet were curled up like she was resting. I stared at them for what felt like hours, holding them gently, like they might disappear if I blinked too hard. She was moving the whole time. My wife said later that evening over the phone, like she knew you were watching. We laughed, softly together, and I could hear the peace in her voice again. It was the kind of peace that returns when you feel seen, heard, and understood. "I am proud of you," she said. "For what?" "For showing up for him and for us." I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "It still hurts, that I could not hold your hand during the appointment." "I know, but I felt you there anyway." That night, back at my dad's house, I sat. Outside, under the stars, the sky was clear and wide, like Grandpa always said it looked best in the country. I imagined him somewhere out there watching, maybe smiling, maybe whispering a blessing into the wind. I thought about how he would have held our baby girl if he had lived to meet her, how he would have rocked her in his arms, told her silly jokes, and taught her the names of trees like he had done for me. I also thought about how proud he would have been, not just of her, but of us, of the choices we made, of the way we tried to do right by everyone, even when our hearts were being pulled in two. It was not about choosing one over the other. It was about honoring both the memory of the man who shaped me and the future of the daughter who would carry our story forward. Grief and joy, side by side, two hands of the same family. The next day, I drove home. The road stretched out before me like a ribbon of time. I passed quiet fields and winding rivers, and I carried with me more than a suitcase. I carried a goodbye, a hello, and a deep understanding that life is made of moments just like this, messy, beautiful, complicated, and full of meaning. When I walked through the front door, my wife was there, waiting. She wrapped her arms around me without a word, and I held her tighter than I ever had before. Later that night, we sat together on the couch. The ultrasound photos on the coffee table, a picture of Grandpa next to them. "He would have loved her," I said. "And she will love hearing about him," she replied. We stayed there long after the sun had gone down. The house was quiet, the dogs were sleeping, and the world outside was still. But inside, everything was full of memory of hope, of the kind of love that does not need to choose between the past and the future, because sometimes, when you carry love well, it becomes the bridge between them. Our family movie night tradition is dead, and I could not be happier. A few years ago, I started doing weekly family movie nights to spend more time together. It sounded wholesome, and honestly, it was at first. We would make popcorn, pile up on the couch, and take turns picking movies. The kids were excited. I was excited. Felt like we were doing something right. Back then, the kids were a little younger. My daughter Emma was around 10, and my son Jacob was 8. They still loved snuggling under blankets and laughing at silly cartoon characters. I remember our very first movie night. It was a Friday evening, and the smell of freshly popped popcorn filled the house. I had bought some soft drinks and even made a little sign that said "Family Movie Night" in big letters and taped it to the living room door. "Can we watch Zootopia?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with hope. "No. Let's watch How to Train Your Dragon." "Please," Jacob begged, practically bouncing on the couch. All right, I said with a smile. "We'll flip a coin." For once, they did not fight. We ended up watching Zootopia, and even Jacob got into it after a few minutes. We laughed together, shared snacks, and paused the movie a few times to talk about what was happening. When it ended, we all clapped like we had just seen a big theater performance. That night, I felt like a superhero. I had created a tradition. Out of thin air, something that brought us closer. No phones, no distractions, just the three of us and the glowing screen. Week after week, we kept it going. Some Fridays we watched old classics, and other nights We tried new releases. We even made little movie menus where the kids picked snacks and drinks like they were at a fancy theater. Once, we made a mini ticket booth out of cardboard and took turns selling tickets to each other before the show. The kids loved that. "Welcome to Movie Night Theater," Jacob had said in a deep, serious voice, wearing sunglasses and a silly bow tie. "One ticket, please." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the popcorn bowl. The tradition became something we all looked forward to, but planned my work around Friday evenings, making sure I got everything done so I could be fully present. It was not just about the movies, it was about the time we spent together. Even when the week had been stressful or tiring, movie night felt like a break, a pause button we all needed. But as with many things in life, the magic began to fade. I cannot say exactly when it started. Maybe it was when Emma became a teenager and wanted more time alone in her room. Or maybe it was when Jacob got his first phone and started texting his friends all the time. Slowly, little things started to change. Movie night no longer felt exciting. Instead of eagerly suggesting films, the kids would shrug. "I do not care," whatever Emma would say, not looking up from her screen. Jacob would groan, "Ugh, not." Another old movie. They still showed up. Pat first, but the energy was different. Less laughter, more sighs, more staring at phones, more complaining about whose turn it was to pick. I tried to keep things going, thinking maybe it was just a phase. One night, I picked a funny, animated sequel I thought they might like. Jacob rolled his eyes before we even hit play. "This looks lame," he mumbled. Emma got up halfway through and said, "I'm going to finish my homework. I'll watch the rest later." I sat there alone, staring at the screen, the popcorn bowl, untouched on the coffee table. The lights were off, but it felt like someone had left the room and taken all the joy with them. That night, I stayed up late wondering what I was doing wrong. Was I being too pushy? Were the kids too old for this? Now, should I make them sit through the whole movie anyway, even if they were clearly not into it? And then I realized something that hurt a little. I was the only one trying to keep the tradition alive, but I was not ready to give up, not yet. So I kept trying, week after week, movie after movie. Some weeks were okay, others were not. Were fights about what to watch. Jacob wanted action. Emma wanted drama. I just wanted peace. We ended up watching random movies no one really liked, just to settle the arguments. "Do we really have to do this every week?" Emma asked once. I did not answer. I just forced a smile and pressed play. But inside, I was starting to feel tired. Really tired. As the weeks went on, the signs became too clear to ignore. Movie night had turned into a chore. No one wanted to admit it, but I could feel it in the silence when I suggested a movie. I could hear it in the sighs when I brought out the popcorn. I could see it in the way Emma and Jacob avoided the couch like it was a dentist's chair, instead of the cozy spot it used to be. There was one night that really pushed things over the edge. It was a chilly Friday in early spring. I had just wrapped up a long work week. My desk was still piled with emails I had not answered and projects I needed to finish. But I had cleared the evening like I always did for movie night. I even picked up everyone's favorite snacks on the way home: chocolate-covered raisins for Emma, spicy chips for Jacob, and those soft pretzels we all liked. I tried to act cheerful as I walked into the living room. "Okay, guys, who's ready for movie night?" I said with a big smile. Emma came downstairs slowly, holding her phone in one hand and a blanket in the other. Jacob was already on the couch playing a game on his phone. He did not even look up. "Can we skip it tonight?" he asked, his thumbs still tapping the screen. Emma dropped her blanket and flopped down with a sigh. "I guess, what are we watching?" I was thinking we could try that new animated One Finding Bear, I said, holding up the DVD case. It's supposed to be really funny and sweet. Emma shrugged. Whatever. Jacob groaned. Seriously, it looks like it's for babies. Come on. It might be better than it looks, I said, trying to stay hopeful. Let's just give it a shot. So we started the movie. I turned the lights down. The popcorn was warm. Everything was just like it used to be, except at WASN single quotes. Jacob kept checking his phone. Emma got up after 15 minutes to get a drink, then came back and started scrolling through pictures. I tried to laugh at the silly parts, hoping they would laugh too. They did not. Can we just watch something else? Jacob finally said. This is boring. Emma stood up. I'm going to my room. Yeah, I've got stuff to do, Jacob added, already walking away. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen lighting up the room. The characters on the screen were talking about friendship and adventure. Meanwhile, my own kids had disappeared upstairs without even a thank you or a goodbye. That was the moment it hit me. Why was I doing this? I looked at the half-eaten popcorn, the untouched pretzels, the empty spots on the couch. I was trying so hard to hold on to something that no one else wanted. I had built this tradition with love, but now it felt like I was dragging everyone along just to pretend we were still as close as we used to be. And in trying to force those moments, I had forgotten the most important part. Being present, I felt a heavy lump in my chest. Not anger, not even sadness, just tiredness. Deep, honest tiredness. So the next week, I did not plan anything. No popcorn, no announcements, no fancy snack trays or movie choices. I just let the evening come and go. No one said a word. The week after that, I did the same. Still silence. No. One asked, "What happened to movie night?" No one knocked on my door with a DVD in hand. It's not even a joke about skipping it. At first I was a little hurt. Did it really mean so little to them? But then something unexpected happened. We started doing other things without planning it. One evening, Emma asked if I wanted to help her bake cookies for a school event. I said yes. We spent 2 hours in the kitchen mixing dough and sneaking chocolate chips. She told me about a friend who was having a hard time, and I listened as she opened up in a way she had not done during movie night in a long time. Another time, Jacob came into my room with a board game under his arm. "Wanna play?" he asked. It was a simple game one we used to play when he was little. But we sat on the floor for nearly an hour, laughing, teasing each other, and just enjoying the moment. No screens, no distractions, just us. And sometimes we did nothing together. We sat in the same room, reading or working quietly. Emma would hum a song. Jacob would show me a funny video. I would just smile and think, this is good. This is enough. I realized something important then. We did not need a set tradition. To be a family, we did not need to copy what other people were doing to feel close. The best moments were the ones that happened naturally, without pressure, and the peace I felt. It was like breathing fresh air after being stuck in a crowded room. There was no more stress about choosing the right movie, no more arguments, and more pretending. I had let go of something that no longer worked hand in doing that. I had made space for something better, something real. The quiet evenings became something I started to treasure at first. It felt strange not having a set plan. Every Friday. No big event. No movie night sign on the door. Just the three of us living, growing, and spending time together when it felt right. I began to notice little changes in our home. Nothing huge, just small, gentle shifts that meant something. Emma came into the kitchen one morning while I was making pancakes. She looked sleepy, her hair still a mess from bed, and she sat down at the table without a word. I poured batter into the pan and flipped the pancakes gently after a few minutes. She said softly, "Thanks for not making us do movie night anymore." I paused, surprised. "You noticed?" "Yeah. I mean, I know it meant a lot to you. But sometimes it felt like we had to pretend to enjoy it." I sat down across from her. "You know, it used to be fun. But I think I kept it going too long." Emma smiled just a little. "I liked it at the start, but things change." She was right. Things do change, and kids grow up faster than we think. Emma was starting high school in a few months, and Jacob would be in middle school. Their world was expanding beyond our little living room. Later that same day, I saw Jacob sitting on the floor with our old photo album, the one we used to look through when they were small. It was thick and worn, filled with pictures of birthday, parties, school plays, and yes, lots of movie nights. "Hey," I said as I walked in, taking a trip down memory lane. He grinned. I forgot how tiny I was. "Look, I still had baby teeth here." He held up a photo of him with popcorn all over his lap, laughing beside Emma while they both wore superhero pajamas. "You guys were so into it back then," I said, smiling at the memory. "Yeah," he agreed. "It was fun when it was special. Not when it was every week." That word special stuck in my mind. Maybe that was what had gone wrong. Something that started as a treat had become a rule, a routine, something we had to do instead of something we wanted to do. When we force fun, it stops being fun. So instead of holding on to one tradition, I started letting new ones form on their own. Some nights, we all ended up in the living room anyway, but now it was because we wanted to be there. One rainy evening, Emma came downstairs with a blanket and sat on the couch. "Do we still have that old movie, The Secret Garden?" she asked. "I kind of feel like watching it." Jacob perked up. "I'll get the popcorn," I smiled, surprised but happy. We curled up together, just like old times. But this time, there was no pressure, no plan. Just a quiet, shared choice. Another day we went for a walk around the neighborhood after dinner. It was one of those evenings when the sky turns pink and orange and everything feels soft and calm. Jacob told me about a comic book he was reading, and Emma walked ahead, taking pictures of the sky on her phone. I did not say much, I just listened. And I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. I think when you become a parent, you get so caught up in doing things right. You read articles and see posts online about how to make memories, how to bond, how to be a good parent. But the truth is, there is no perfect formula. No Pinterest board can tell you what your family needs. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is listen to your kids, to your heart, and to the quiet. The biggest surprise of all was how much better I felt when movie nights were still happening. I would spend most of them worrying. Was this the right movie? Were they enjoying it? Should I have picked something else? Should we be bonding more? Why are they looking at their phones? But now, I felt lighter, free from that quiet pressure to make it work. I was no longer watching movies alone while pretending everything was fine. I was no longer pushing my family to enjoy something that no longer brought them joy. Instead, we were finding new ways to connect. Real ways. Emma started asking for help with her art projects. Jacob wanted me to test out his new recipes. He was going through a chef phase, and although most of his dishes included way too much ketchup, I was proud of him for trying, and I started doing little things for myself too. I picked up reading again. I started gardening. I even joined a weekend walking group with a few neighbors, things I had quietly set aside while I chased after a tradition that had lost its meaning. The best part, I felt present. Not just physically, but emotionally. I could sit on the porch with a cup of tea and not feel guilty. I could enjoy a random game night with the kids without needing it to be perfect. We were not doing less, we were just doing it differently. And I realized, family, Time does not need to be loud, planned, or even weekly. It just needs to be real. Sometimes that means a deep talk over cookies. Sometimes it is sitting in silence while you read separate books. And sometimes, if you are lucky, it means your daughter asks to watch a movie with you again. Not because it is movie night, but because she wants to be near you, and that makes all the difference. Looking back now, I do not see the end of movie night as a failure. I see it as a turning point. I used to think that holding on to a tradition, even when it no longer fit, meant I was being a good parent. I thought consistency meant love. That if I just kept showing up with popcorn and a movie, the magic would return. But love does not always live in planned routines. Sometimes it lives in the in-between moments, the quiet chats in the car, the gentle laughter during a game, the shared silence while watching rain slide down a window. I had not failed my family by letting go of movie night. I had simply made room for us to grow. And the truth is, not every good thing lasts forever. That does not make it less valuable. The early days of movie night were beautiful. They brought us together when we needed it most. They created memories I will always treasure. But clinging to those moments too tightly meant I was missing the ones happening right in front of me. Once I let go of the pressure to create perfect family time, I saw something even better unfold. We still gather in the living room now and then, but it is never forced. Sometimes we talk about our day. Sometimes we each do our own thing nearby. Jacob reading comics on the floor, Emma sketching in her notebook, me folding laundry or sipping tea. No one has to be the entertainer. No one has to pretend. One Saturday morning, Emma made breakfast for all of us. Just toast and scrambled eggs, but she placed it on the table like it was a feast. "You always cooked for us on movie night," she said. I thought I would return the favor, Jacob added, "except your eggs are way better than those soggy theater nachos." We laughed. It was simple and real. That kind of moment does not need a label or a special name, and sometimes we still watch a movie together. But now it happens naturally, without planning. One of us might say, "Hey, this looks fun," and we all settle in. The best part? It is no longer about checking a box or sticking to a schedule. It is just something we enjoy together. I also started paying attention to what mattered most to each of us. Emma loves walks in the evening, so we sometimes stroll around the block together. She talks about school, art, or books she is reading. Jacob enjoys helping in the kitchen, so I ask him to stir the sauce or choose the seasoning. These little things might seem small, but they have brought us closer than any forced tradition ever did. I still believe in family time. I still believe in creating space for connection. But now I know that quality time cannot be forced or scheduled like a dentist appointment. It has to grow on its own. And sometimes, to make space for the new, we have to let the old things go. So, if you are reading this and feeling like something in your family is not working anymore, Eddie is movie night, game night, Sunday dinners, or something else, let me say this. It is okay to stop. It is okay to say this used to work, but it does not anymore. You are not giving up on your family. You are making space for something better. Your children will not remember every theme night, every carefully planned snack tray, or every movie you picked, but they will remember how it felt to be around you. They will remember how safe, seen, and loved they felt, not because you followed a schedule, but because you truly showed up in the moments that mattered, and they will remember the feeling of being part of something that felt real. I once believed that the tradition was what made us close. Now I know better. It was never the popcorn or the movies. It was us, and we are still here. Still growing, still finding new ways to love and be loved. No movie required.